Discussion with Gerald Celente, and we'll be right back with more and your calls on Coast to Coast AM. Manufacturing, Gerald, is going away. As a matter of fact, whenever I see a U.S. company that has total product made in the United States, I go, huh?
Isn't it a wonderful sight?
It really is.
You know, people ask us for solutions, and we try to provide them as trend posts in our Trends Journal, actions to take and strategies to consider. We have decided, with all the facts and information in front of us, that what needs to happen is contrary to what the government is saying. Number one is the too big to fails have to fail. There's not been one study, not one piece of solid information that says that they have to be kept alive. All they give are these silly little stories. If your neighbor's house is on fire and it's burning, are you not going to put it out because they become irresponsible? The fire could catch to your house. That's silly. The reality is that the strength of this nation, when we were the most egalitarian country in the world, was at a time when we didn't have Wall Street as the major power. Main Street was.
That's right.
We didn't have Walmarts. We had mom and pops. With everyday low prices, you get everyday low-paying jobs. We were a nation of shopkeepers, and we were a nation of entrepreneurs. Now we've become a nation of shelf stockers, hamburger flippers, and clerks. We don't need Wall Street. We need Main Street. We don't need Walmarts. We need mom and pops. Again, the facts speak for themselves. We were the most egalitarian country in the world when that model existed. We are now, the gap between the rich and the poor is the widest in the United States than any of the industrialized nations. And we don't need agribusiness. We need family farms. And again, when you look at those three elements, Main Street, mom and pops, family farms, that's when America was at its strongest. And that's what we have to bring back, rather than these government schemes, the merger of corporate and state powers to impose fascism on a country that was once the greatest democracy in the world.
Let's go to Petaluma, California on the wild card line. Claudia. Hi, Claudia.
All men to you. I actually hail from Mennonite country in Ontario, Canada. And you've just described the rural living, etc. There was no psychiatric drugging, unnecessary, whatever. You know what I mean? But I want to ask you, if this system was to go through that is being pushed by the government on the health care, I see it as a license to get sick, because if everybody is forced to get insurance, then the only way you're going to get a payback on it is to get ill so that you can be covered. So do you see how the drug companies, or would you say the drug companies and people who unnecessarily label and drug people, mental health groups or whatever, are they going to make off like bandits?
Well, the drug companies already are under the Bush scheme for us to cover prescription drug costs under Medicare and Medicaid. And this health plan does nothing to provide a system for people to be healthier. It's just a money movement scheme where the big guys are going to make the money and the government's going to take more control of our lives. So definitely we're going to continue to see more and more drugs being pushed on the nation because the plan itself does nothing to address the ills of the nation. We're the most obese country in the world. We take more prescription drugs than any country per capita by a long shot, and take more, as you well point out, antidepressants and other types of drugs of that nature than any other country. So no, it's a losing situation, except for the big pharma and the big corporations in the health business.
Is there a different way to come up with a better health plan, Gerald, to make sure that Americans get treatment?
Well, of course. course there is, and what we have to look at where the priorities are. I can say one thing that no one's ever talking about. Everyone seems to be afraid, but of course, political correctness is on the top of the agenda these days. No one wants to talk. Again, going back, I'm a believer in the Constitution, and just for the record, I don't need Supreme Court justices to read for me. I'm an intelligent man. I could figure out the words, and it's been abrogated over and over again. And one of the founders of this country that they insisted on was not to become engaged in foreign entanglements. And when you read history, you see over and over again how empires became defeated because they stretched their resources so thin by fighting foreign wars. We've gobbled up over $1 trillion in Iraq and Afghanistan. And again, I don't need these guys telling me we're winning. You know, all they keep saying is, yeah, it only looks like we're losing. Give us more money. We need more time. So we're squandering our resources at a time we should not be increasing our defense budget, as Obama did by 4%, expanding our war machines at a time when the country is in financial straits that we are now. It is a classic example of empire decline.
You know, I just saw Henry Kissinger on television, Gerald, and I got to tell you, it turns my stomach every time I see him when I realize that he turned around and walked from these POWs that I know we left behind in Vietnam.
Oh, they're all of them. That McNamara that died, he should have been brought up on war crime charges.
Yes, absolutely.
He admitted that he knew the war was a loss. He admitted that he lied and knew what was going on, and yet he kept prosecuting the war, these arrogant people. But anyway, this is what's going on in this country, and people refuse to face the facts about it. I would like to mention just quickly before another call, we have proven that Obama's fiscal stimulus program, the spending plan, is going to be a failure and not deliver on what they have promised, the $787 billion bailout scheme. And very briefly, they had promised when they launched the scheme back in January, right after inauguration.
When they took half of what was already spent, right? Right.
They said they would create 3.5 to 4 million jobs over the payout of that $750 billion. Right. By the most modest estimates, they've spent 20% already. They've only created 150,000 jobs. Since this recession began, 7.2 million workers have lost their jobs. So in taking it forward, understanding that since they've been in office, 2.5 million jobs have been lost, we're giving them the benefit of the doubt, saying they saved 150,000. At tops, this $757 billion is going to create maybe 750,000 jobs.
Next up, let's go to Jack in Los Angeles, east of the Rockies. Hey, Jack, go ahead.
Hey, thank you again. It's a pleasure to be talking to you, gentlemen. I couldn't agree more. I really have a lot to say, just a few comments to say. But the overall thing is that our money, I could not agree more, but our money is absolutely positively worthless. And it's getting to the point that people are not even putting their faith in the paper money. They can't afford to buy gold. They can't afford to do anything. And there's been other things here. People are at a loss.